The singer's family expected to argue that his mother, Catherine, should continue to oversee his affairs. But the will, which was drawn up back in 2002, actually names John Branca and John McClain as the co-executors. Well, Branca actually worked as Jackson's attorney between 1980 and 2006, while McClain, founder of Interscope Records, well, he's an old family friend, they say. Well, 2 weeks ago, the star's mother, Catherine Jackson, was named as the interim administrator. Now, at that time, it was assumed there was no will in place, but legal experts predict that she will now have to give up temporary control of her son's assets while the situation is addressed. Reports suggest that Michael Jackson left behind some debts of $500 million, but with his part ownership of the Beatles' back catalogue and posthumous record sales and downloads, of course, well, he could actually have assets of some $1 billion. Now, the 2002 will leaves all those assets to his mother and to his 3 children and some various charities. But it's left out his former wife, Debbie Rowe, and his father, too, Joe Jackson. Let's get the very latest now with Sky's Greg Milam, who's at Forest Lawn Cemetery, and of course, questions about the funeral ceremony. But let's first talk to Robert Nisbet outside the courthouse about, well, what is probably going to be the first in many legal battles to come, Robert.
I think so, and I think purely because of the size of the estate, you're bound to get a lot of legal activity, but both legal teams are squaring off against each other. You have John Branca and John McClain, the co-executors of the will, accusing Catherine Jackson of indecent haste in going to the court immediately after his death to get temporary administration rights. And then you have lawyers for Catherine Jackson accusing the others of being insensitive by planning this the day before the memorial tribute that's also here in Los Angeles. Now, a little bit of background with John Branca, you gave some there, but he was Michael Jackson's attorney from between 1980 and 2006, so a long time. He had always said that this 2002 will was in existence. The family had denied that. They said that they knew nothing of it, but obviously it was filed in court, in this very court last week. So now we've gone into probate, which is effectively what is called kind of legally securing the will, proving in a court of law its probity. So now you have these two different legal sides battling it out on the same week as the rest of the world is getting ready to remember him.
But one would have assumed that the law is the same in the US as perhaps it is here, that once the will has been proved to be a genuine document, a genuine article, that is what stands in law.
And that's what most legal experts seem to be saying, that that Catherine Jackson's temporary hold over the estate is likely to be relinquished at this hearing today, and that the executives of the will, as long as everything is in order and the probity is established in the court of law, that they will then take control of the estate. What happened last week, when Catherine Jackson went to court, is when they gave her temporary administration rights over his estate, they didn't really go very far. I mean, she wasn't allowed control over all of his bank accounts, etc. She was given temporary control over a lot of his personal effects, 3,000 items in total. So she doesn't actually have, say, the keys to the bank accounts, but certainly in court today it's likely that the co-executors of the will be given control of the estate. That doesn't mean that Catherine and the Jackson family are going to be shut out, of course, because the will does provide for Catherine Jackson, as well as his 3 children, and a variety of different charities. And of course then there's the separate legal issue of custody of the children. She's been granted temporary custody. The hearing for permanent custody has been delayed until next week.
Plenty of lawyers' fees being earned, no doubt. Well, let's bring in Greg, who's over at the Forest Lawn Memorial Park, because I understand police have confirmed that there will be a burial there now, Greg, perhaps a religious service, a proper ceremony, because all of last week they've been talking about Neverland being his final resting place.
Yes, the confirmation from the LAPD that they are in discussions with the Jackson family about a burial, and in discussion also with Forest Lawn. Now, Forest Lawn has a number of locations. There's one at a place called Glendale, which is where some of the biggest stars that Forest Lawn has looked after over the years are buried. I've got to say there's a lot of police activity here. There's a police control centre just to my left. Police cars have been arriving at the gates here. That would suggest that something major is going on here. And the Reverend Al Sharpton, the family friend, the civil rights campaigner, has been talking, as Robert mentioned, on the morning TV shows here today. And in what he said, he perhaps let the cat out of the bag, saying that it was wrong that that court hearing was taking place today because a mother would go to the cemetery tomorrow, i.e. Tuesday, to see her son being buried. So maybe a clue there that, as has been suspected, this burial could take place early tomorrow morning here at Forest Lawn before the family then move on to that memorial service at the Staples Centre. But no confirmation, no clarification. Clearly the family want this funeral service to be private, and if they do, then there's no better place than the Forest Lawn Memorial Park to keep it secret.
And indeed, perhaps had that been the indication of having this very public event at the Staples Centre with all the stars and the tickets and so on, to take the public attention away from what they want to be a very private moment?
Yes, I think so. I think they recognised very early on that fans needed to have the opportunity to say goodbye, even though it will be, of course, a very limited number of fans who will actually be in those two venues. They made sure that fans would have the opportunity to watch on television, because that pool feed will come out of the venue and will be broadcast around the world for free. But I think all along they've wanted their own opportunity to say goodbye, and we have to remember that Michael Jackson was quite a secretive person in life. His family, as much as they are a showbiz family, and recognise that need to have a very public goodbye, will have wanted to respect his wishes, and crucially, of course, respect the wishes of his 3 young children. He did a lot to protect them from the media spotlight during life. The family will want to do the same at this event, and they can do that here. Many of the graves of the great and the good of Hollywood, which is where we are standing now, are buried here, and they're buried in areas where the public can't get to them. That will, of course, weighed on their minds in planning the funeral, and it appears that's why they've chosen here to have that funeral, and it appears that'll take place tomorrow.
Greg Gatch, Forest Lawn, thanks very much indeed for updating us there.